Alright, so this is going to be a video probably for homeowners and technicians to see how things work. These new water heaters get a little bit of water in the basement. The flammable vapor sensor gets underwater, the burner goes underwater, and everyone's upset because you can't just clean it and get it running again. They got to buy a new water heater. So this is going to be a video kind of showing why we can't just fix it. It's not that easy to do, and so let me know what you think at the end of the video. Alright, so here's a water heater we removed from a customer's home. They had about 6-8 inches of water, so the gas valve did not go underwater. Just the burner and vapor sensor went under. So as we can see, we can focus in. You can see the flashing light, and I believe it's a 7 flash code. So, and if we come over to our, well, I don't know if you could read in here, but the 7 flash code is telling us the flammable vapor sensor is bad. So the flammable vapor sensor is this item right here. So it actually senses the air around it to determine if it thinks it has flammable vapors, you know, gasoline, paint, things like that, anything that can ignite. If it senses those, it'll actually shut the water heater off. So since this sensor went underwater, which the sensor is replaceable, it's bad. But the problem is the burner also partially went underwater, and there's a perforated screen down there for combustion air that gets dirty. So when you have dirty water which gets into there during the flood, it plugs up that screen. So we'll go and show you that. Normally the air comes in these perforated holes on the side, goes down on the inside, underneath, comes back up in the center of the burner, and you got perforated screens on both sides. So it's important to keep these clean if you have pets and dogs, because it'll plug those up and you won't get proper combustion air, you know, normally. Alright, so that's where we're at. We'll start taking things apart and show you why it's not just so simple to change the sensor and hope that it still works. Alright, so here we're going to start. Start with the flammable vapor sensor. You can probably pop that clip right off of there. Yeah, there you go. Oh, yeah, the whole plastic thing. Alright. So here's our vapor sensor. A couple of spade clips on the back. Just plugs into the base of the gas valve. We're going to remove that burner now. Back out. Okay, so we removed the 4 screws on the burner cover. Now he's loosening the main gas line, and he'll loosen the pilot line. Oh, we still got the pilot line to remove there. And we'll unplug the ignition wire. I think it pulls straight out towards you. There you go. And we'll slide the burner out. Alright, so here's what the burner looks like. Underneath, you've got your pilot assembly right here. There's your igniter. But if we imagine this is in here setting close to the ground, right down under the burner you see that orifice. So this lower gap, here, hold this. This is now real close to the ground. That orifice down there, if this water heater floods with water, water's going to go down in that orifice and flood this gas line. It's also going to get inside the pilot assembly and plug all that up. So now we're the main problem we run into, because that's easy to clean and fix, is the combustion air. Where's your drop light? Alright, our combustion air, remember our fresh air comes in, runs down the side, underneath the bottom, and then it comes in. I don't know if you can see those perforated holes. Let's see if I can get in here a little better. See, they're kind of, some are clean, some are kind of plugged up with that white gunk or whatever was floating around the basement. Water was getting in there, but you could see that those perforated holes are dirty. So now this plate is riveted down, so it's not removable, so we cannot get to that except for that small part of those perforated holes. That item back there is also, if we don't clean those plates properly, that little glass tube right in the middle, if this heater shuts down for lack of combustion air, the flames will actually cause that to overheat. That'll pop and shut off full combustion air to smother out the burner. So I'll show you that in a minute, but we need to figure out a way to clean this combustion air. So how do we do that? What we're going to do here in the shop, of course, the water heater is now drained, sitting in here. We can lay it down. We're going to remove the bottom of the heater, this actual bottom sheet metal. So on this particular model, there's 4 screws going around, and then we'll look at the underside to see how much of that screen we can get to. Okay, so now that the heater's laying down on the ground, of course you can imagine the labor time to disconnect the heater, drain it, and start doing all this stuff. You add up all those hours of labor, and it's going to be cheaper just buying a new water heater. But this is why we can't just fix it for a customer. It's not that easy. So if we look, we can see through this combustion air hole the perforated screen up in there. We can see some debris up on the screen. Let's see if I can put some light on the inside. I got light on the other side now. Some of the holes are clean, some are dirty. But that perforated screen is this whole chamber area. So if we could remove this whole thing and get to that screen, that would be nice. But as you can see, there's no way to remove this plate. I can remove this little portion right here, this little plate, but I can still only get to this big of the area easily. So let's go ahead and do that. What we're going to do is remove that plate, and I'll show you. That has to do with that little glass tube on the inside for combustion air. So here, Manny, hold this. So that glass tube in there, again, is holding down on a shaft on this plate. You can kind of see the shaft right in there. That glass tube is holding that shaft, pushing this plate down, creating this opening. If that glass tube breaks, this plate snaps up and seals off this hole to smother out the burner. And there's a spring under this plate to do that. So what I'll do is I'm going to remove this glass tube. See if I can get in there and do it. I don't know if I can videotape it at the same time or not. Get in there. Push down. Okay. So here's the glass tube. It's got 2 little wings on it that snap in around the bracket down there. So now See how that shaft now popped up? The glass tube doesn't hold that shaft. And our burner combustion air plate right here is now sealed shut. Normally that glass tube holds it open, or it allows it to snap shut. If it senses too much heat, it'll shut off combustion air and then smother the burner out. So what we're going to do, see if I can remove this plate. Here, you hold the camera on there.
Excuse me, John, didn't you take the ProPress kits?
Get the spring out of here first. Tony, I'm not sure where the ProPress kit is at.
No, I'm talking about the fitting suit. Y'all remember you taking them out. Did you fill them already?
No. Okay, there's our spring and our combustion air plate. Of course, we can see this is full of rust, so we know this water heater has been underwater. So that's why we had to replace it for the customer. In fact, we put in an instantaneous water heater that we hung up on the wall, so now it won't go underwater anymore. Alright, so here again is there's that shaft that pushes up and down on that plate. So we're going to get that out of the way here also. And now we can see a little better that perforated screen. Alright, so when water floods under here, who knows what kind of garbage is floating in the water, and it just gets up and plugs up all these little holes, which this whole thing is full of little holes. But this plate is not removable. So we got to get a brush up in this side, clean it out, a brush on the other side, clean it out, probably blow it out with some kind of compressed air. Of course, put it all back together, put a new vapor sensor in, light it, check combustion. Of course, we're now, after you do this kind of work, you're going to have to get a combustion analyzer, check combustion on everything coming out of the exhaust. This particular one is a PVC vented, higher efficiency model. So you got to make sure it's running safe. So again, all that labor, all that time, all that material for the homeowner, which may have just purchased a heater, which this one here was under a year old, is a little upsetting, but it's still cheaper to get a new heater than trying to fix the old one. The time and labor involved is just too much. It's not worth it. Alright, so I'm going to get a brush and then we're going to try and clean this one out.
You're right, like that?
Yep.
Alright.
So here we just got a regular flue brush. Going to kind of force it up in there and brush the top, or brush the bottom now, as far away as we can get. Loosen up any garbage that's up in there. All that rust, try and break it free. Now we got to get on the inside, get in that little hole. You see down there, kind of force that brush in that hole so we can brush the top of this plate. Now that we've cleaned the bottom of it. Gets to be a little labor intensive. So again, unfortunately for a customer having to pay a professional to do it, it just doesn't add up. Not that it can't be done, just it's not worth it. Alright, so now that we've brushed it and we got most of the perforated plate brushed and cleaned, we're going to use some compressed CO2 to blow out the heater. Blow it out from both sides. now we got all that nastiness out of there. We can see that plate is a lot cleaner. Now we can see through all the holes. It's nice and clean. So now it would definitely be able to get proper combustion air. But if you can't get to the bottom and the top is the easy part to get to. The bottom part, you got to disassemble the heater, drain it, turn it upside down. You know, it's just ridiculous to get to. And now we'll put it back together. We're going to put a new vapor sensor in it and see if our gas valve reacts correctly. Alright, so we pulled and cleaned the orifice out of the pilot already. We've pulled the orifice out of the burner head. We're going to put that orifice back in. And then of course reinstall the burner head back on that. And of course we blew out the main gas line to make sure there was no crud and crap inside the gas line. So now we're going to put that back together. Okay. So now we're going to slide the burner back in.
This thing just goes in?
Yeah, it's just to kind of angle it and get it up in there. Line those screws up, gas line, pilot. So we'll now put these 4 screws back in the burner. We'll hook up the main gas line, we'll hook up the pilot line, and of course the spark goes back on, and we'll wire in a new vapor sensor. And we'll plug it in and see if our 7 flash code goes away. Alright, so here's our oxygen sensor we took out of the water heater. I've got another oxygen sensor, or not oxygen, sorry, vapor sensor. So I'm going to swap these 2 out. I can set the camera down here. Plug the wires. How do I change this sensor out? Push this out of there. It's tough to get this thing out of place. Alright, so that's popped out of there. I'm going to pop the new one back in. The wires back up. Okay, got a replacement sensor in. There's our old one. And then we'll go put it in the water heater. And we're also putting the bottom back on the water heater after we put it all back together. While he's doing that, I'm gonna get our wires through here. Well, it's tough to do this one-handed. Is that in? There we go. So we can get this. Okay, now it's snapped in there. Put our sensor back in. Okay. What do we do with that little wire clip? Is that up there? Oh, fine. We'll put that on in a minute. Alright, so we've got the water heater all put back together now. So I just got it leaning on a dolly, so it's easier to see and work on. We put the bottom back on, burner cover back in, oxygen sensor, Everything's plugged back in. So let's go ahead and plug her in. I think the power's still already on. Our flash code is probably still going to be there because we haven't reset the gas valve. Yeah, so we see our 7 flash code is still there, but that's because we haven't reset the gas valve. So I'm going to put the code in to reset the gas valve now. Let's see, hold on. We're going to unplug the heater. Wait about 10 seconds or so. I'm going to replug it back in. And let's redo the gas valve reset. All right. So we've just reset the gas valve. Our status light is now flashing. Our inducer has started up. You might be able to actually see it trying to spark and light in there. See that sparking? So if we had gas hooked up to this, it'd be lighting the pilot through that little window. You can see the sparker. So it's trying to light the pilot, but of course we have no gas hooked up. And we would have a functional gas water heater now. Of course, if we did hook it back up in a home, we'd have to check combustion after the unit fired up, make sure that our CO and our O2 and CO2, everything are proper, safe, and operating the way it's supposed to be. Run it through its paces, cycles on, cycles off. But for those of you out there that had a water heater that went underwater and you just want the guy to light the pilot, this is why he can't just light the pilot. There's a lot more to it for these new water heaters with the flammable vapor sensors especially. There's a lot more to them than just lighting the pilot like the old water heaters. You just can't do it anymore. They've now become disposable. You throw it away and you gotta get a new heater. And this is why. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And got any comments? Let me know. Thanks.